All right, so the first thing off the on the agenda is to how to use OpenMapper to create a KMZ file. Now, how I propose we do this is we would use an existing georeferenced file. So I'm not at this stage showing you how to do a georeference, and so just how to create the KMZ file for MapRun from that. So we've got one here, which I'll just open up in Orienteering Mapper. So this is a fairly familiar map to some of you from today. And this is the base map. And as you see, I've stripped off all the extraneous stuff around it, other than the key, because the idea is that you just take a area of this, which you view through a template. It's very simple to create the KMZ file for MapRun from here. We go File, Export as KMZ. Brings up that. We don't need to show templates because it's not a template at this stage. It's showing the red boundary, which is the area which it's exporting, and you simply go export, and that's it. So it's very simple. However, it has to be a georeferenced file. To check that it's georeferenced, we can look at Map Georeferencing. And in here, it's georeferenced under UTM coordinates, and you can see the typical Australian or Victorian degrees there, -37 and 145. So if it's got a positive number there and some completely different number there, that means it's in Europe somewhere and it hasn't been properly done. So check that it's georeferenced correctly, and then export KMZ. And that's it for the KMZ. So that's very easy. Now, what that does is when you create a KMZ file for MapRun, is that then the orienteering map itself appears on the MapRun screen rather than the typical OpenStreetMap or Google Maps background, which you see on some maps. So that's an advantage, because then the paper map is actually the same as the map on MapRun. Not essential, but a nice to have. Item 2. Any questions before we go on? Item 2 is how to use A4 Streeto template files to make a Streeto course.
I think Martin had something. He put his hand up.
Oh, okay.
Martin, yeah.
Bruce, you mentioned that just to check if the map was georeferenced. So if I opened a map which wasn't georeferenced, and
yeah,
would there be enough?
I'll open one for you.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
So here is this is a one I saved when I was actually creating this map, and it was at a point when it was an OCAD8 file which had been opened, so it didn't have georeferencing information. If you look at the georeferencing there, it just says local.
Yeah, got it. Yep, thank you.
That's a big hint, and you'll see 000. It looks very good.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so how do you use a template file? Now, this is, actually, I'll go to number 3 first. Why do we want to do this? The way people have typically made a Streeto map now is taken a copy of a Streeto map file, like that one we just looked at, then put in all the various descriptive boxes, the clue descriptions, the instructions, the headings, and the controls and the start, and put them on actually in the OCAD file of the map, and then that printed that out as a PDF file, and that becomes the map which everyone has. The problem with that approach, and we've seen this probably about once a year, the problem with that approach is that it's so easy to accidentally edit the map. In many cases, that just results in a few missing contours because they're really easy to miss. But in the worst case, the memorable case, someone deleted a whole network of east-west roads from the map, which is very disconcerting for runners when it was a whole bare area map which had just north-south roads in it, and the whole east-west roads, which was sticking into the area they deleted to put some clue descriptions up or something, were missing those roads. So that's one reason. The other reason is that when you're course setting, you often set a course and then go out on the course, or a bit of a mixture of the two, go out, have a look at the control locations, come back, do a few iterations sometimes. You'll find something wrong with the map. In the case of Highbury Hill, I found that there was a school which needed more areas to be greyed out because schools are now out of bounds. If you just go back and edit the base map, you can save that base map, and that is then ready for anyone else to use for future events. So any edits to the map are done independent of all the controls and other rubbish on top of it. Whereas if you had a map which has got all the controls on it and all the clue descriptions and stuff, you have to edit that map file, make the changes. And also, if you wanted to make the same change of someone else later, you have to go back and edit the original file without all that stuff on it, so it can be used later. And that step is often left out. People forget to do that. And so the error carries on to the next person and the next person and so on. So this has a real advantage. You only make those changes, which you need to make once, and you can make them at any time during the process. I actually went out today on Highbury Hill and decided that actually some more of the school down in the southwestern corner probably should be greyed out. It was only half greyed out on the map. I could go and make that change to the base map now, then print out a new version of the template file, which has got all the controls on it, which has got that change file in the background, create a new PDF, put it up on the website, and no one will be the wiser. It can be done at any time. So that's a big advantage. So there's two major advantages to using a template method, and there's another advantage. It's far less stuffing around. So I'll show you how to do that. We start off with a template. Let's take a portrait template, because Highbury Hill is a sort of portrait map. We make a copy of the template and rename that to be our final event file. Now open up this final event. And that looks fairly unexciting. It's got a whole lot of stuff which you can pull onto the map around the map area. This is actually an A4 area here. These are all things you might use. Don't have to use all of them. Just grab which ones you use. Some are 25 controls, some are 20 controls, various different club logos, so you can pull in the appropriate one. Then what you do is you bring in the actual map file which you want to deal with, which in this case is the Highbury Hill, one we just looked at before. Yes, it's got the georeferencing, that's what we want. And now we'll bring the whole lot across here. If we click on that, we can actually move that. So if that was a much larger map of a much larger area, you can select which area you want. You see how it's brought into view just a bit of the map which you want. Someone's got a radio on or something there. Probably Mark, I think. So yeah, there we can see we can grab an A4 section of that map that we want to see. So in my case, I have just the bottom half of the event. There's another trick we can do here. If we go into the selection mode, and so these surrounds are basically just blanking plates. And that's how it allows you to do that movement where it just hides what's around. We can just bring it down. One of the existing, you probably never need to add a new one. You can always control copy, control V. That's a hiding plate. Now we've hidden the top part of that map. We go back to moving the thing. The template has now got a smaller view. So it gives us a nice whole area up there to put all the control descriptions. You don't have to do that. I didn't do that on the event map. Mine was just basically I'll just go Control Z. Back at that. Then you grab the bits which you want. So let's say this was actually a BK event, but let's take it as an ARD event. You grab the whole title box. The way you move these around is you grab the pink bit, which changes to orange when you got it selected. And you just move that down and put it where you want. And that's a heading. Then you can actually change that. And you can't edit the map. This is just a template underneath. By clicking here, there's nothing there. So you can't make any errors, but these things are editable. So we go into here, I'll make sure in that mode, and we can select the name. We can change it to Bruce's. We can change the scale. These are all just examples of things which you might want. Most of the maps are 1 to 10,000, so that's what it has in here as a standard. Then there's the way open orienteering map you generally use the arrow keys to move things around. It makes it much easier. We'll want a runner's course information. Chuck that there. We'll want power walkers information. Chuck that there. Yeah, I think we've got all that information there already. Oh, we need the somewhere here. I think, yep, there's the COVID information box, which is required for all these controls. That's on the template. Move the arrow keys around while we can do it, and we'll chuck that in there. There we go. There's a COVID information box, and anything else. And we also, on this particular map, we want to save the start triangle, which was just about there somewhere. So this is now in a state in record time. I've obviously had to change, go in and edit the distances there, but we've now got pretty much got a valid. There's also clue descriptions. They could go in later. They don't need to go in this version of the map. You might want to put in copyrights and controls on light poles if it's a night event. All sorts of things which you grab and put on there. If you just want a general, put some more information in on my map, you might have seen the thing about it being a boxy event. You can just grab one of these, delete all the text in it and put it on there. And it's automatically, because it's on top of a template, anything which you bring in from here blanks out the template. So the template's a lower priority. So you don't need this stacking of colors business, which you do in OCAD. It's all been worked out for you in this template. There's a bare minimum of actual things you can, symbols, which you can put on the map, which are all basically what's in these, make these things work. There's none of the standard stuff which you get there for doing a map. If you want to do that stuff, you do that back on the original map file. In this case, this is just purely for setting the event. At this point, we would probably save this off as an OCAD file as well, in case you want to make changes to the blank file. So I will go File, Save. You can save it as a, it depends. If you're doing a whole event using Open Orienteering Map, it's probably better to just save it as an OMAP file. So we can do that. Highbury Hill, Georeference, OMAP. No, we're not going to call it that. We're going to call it today's event, blank. So that's the blank map. And at this point, we can also export the PDF of this blank map. And this is typically the map which gets stuck to the table for the event. Now you notice the map's not there. There's a trick here. You've got to turn on this Show Templates, and then any templates which are in the original map then appear. And then we can, for some reason, always selects custom area there. You just make it single page. Move the A4 area to what you actually want to publish, your PDF file, and then export that as a PDF file. I won't bother doing it here. But that is now your blank map. Close off that. And then when you actually want to make your control map, we just grab a control, or let's zoom in a bit, grab a control. Oops. Yeah, the easiest way to select these is just to select partial area. If it's selected everything to do with number 1. Again, to drag it, you grab the orange, and then you can use the arrow keys at the same time. So you don't need to zoom in and out. It's just easier to use the arrow keys, put the control where you want. Go and grab another control. Oops, don't really want to grab the number and the controls. Let's do something like that. There you go, put number 14 there. Put one there, put number 20 there. And so on and so forth. Use the arrow keys again. That was where one of the controls was tonight. All right, so we've obviously put in 25 controls of the 25 control course, or 20 controls of the 20 control course. You'd want to put in clue descriptions. So grab here somewhere is a clue description box. Grab that, move it to somewhere out of way. Look, it's going to cover over the event. Oh, well, I'll just edit it, rearrange the size. And that takes a bit of stuffing around. So you can move the vertices around and, oops. It's because it's got rounded corners, you've got to grab, the easiest way to do this is grab the whole corner. Like that, and then you don't muck up the corner. And the same thing down here for the actual surround. Yeah, this is sort of orienteering map of details rather than how to do the event details. Oops. Oops. I've done exactly what I said not to do, and that was to edit the corner. No, I'm mucking it up. Anyway, so you can rearrange that. You can move in. You can edit the text. So that text is all set up like that. So what we'll do is we would edit text, and we'll make a new text box. Out of that, maybe, oops. You don't even need to know how to do these things, because you can just select that, control copy, control V, there's another text box, move it up there, other controls, then delete those, and then paste in the ones which I've lost out of my paste buffer. Anyway, you can make your subsequent controls there. Anyway, that's a bit of mucking around.
Bruce?
Yeah.
Could you just have on the template 2 control description boxes, 1 to 10 and then 11 to 20, and then you could either stack them that way or side by side?
That's probably a better idea. But this template can all be modified and improved. I mean, this one's like a 25 control box, which is probably, so we're going to go down half the size of that. So that might be better in groups of 5. So that's probably a good idea. So there's no reason to actually not make improvements to the template file. As Debbie says, you can just have separate groups and shove them together. But you're not doing any more work here than you would have done on an event file of your own. You're just modifying what's given to you. So now we've got effectively an event file with everything we need on it for the event. and we would, at this point, export as PDF again. And there's your event file with a PDF. And I'll go on to the number 4 there, which is how to use OpenMapper to create a KML file. Now, this is a new thing which has come in 0.0.95 of Open Orienteering Mapper, that version. And what we're actually using, and I worked this out myself because there wasn't any, I couldn't even find on the web any information about how to do this. But there's an export option there called Simple Course. Now, if I just select that now, it says you need a single line object. How it actually works is you grab any line object, and there's a nice line there, and we're going to basically zoom in a bit. And you want to zoom in fairly well because the vertices of these lines are going to be what's going to count. So our start is here somewhere. Where did our start triangle go? I must have deleted it by accident when I was mucking around with it. Doesn't matter. What is actually on the map doesn't matter. Everything is, all of the information is contained in this line. So we'll start it here in the car park. Oops. Oh, line mode. No, it's in selection mode for some reason. Sometimes I get a bit confused in using this thing myself. Still in selection mode.
Is it the pencil, Bruce?
You might be right. Maybe you have to select. No, it's not a rectangle. No, paint on template. No, draw paths.
That's not a line, I don't think.
Oh, maybe that's not a line. You might be right. Maybe we'll select this border here. That's better. There we go. So I'm at the, let's say the start's there. We'll go, you've got to go in the control order. So we'll go to control 1. Then we'll go to wherever control 2 is, and you make this all one line. Then you go control 3, wherever it is, and 4. You just keep on putting in your line. 5, 6, 7, 8. Use the arrow keys again. 9, 10, and so forth.
I'm exhausted.
Oh, I missed one. I didn't click it. So you're keeping all in order for the controls, and then you go back to the finish. And now you've got, just go back, and that we've now selected that whole line object. And at this point, you can then go export as simple course. And we'll name this event today. Course name, doesn't matter, PW. Now, the important thing here is to change that to 1. It's set to 31 to suit sport ident, which starts at 31. That's a default minimum control number for real control. For Streeto, we'll start off with 1, and we'll go OK. And the other thing is generally the XML is the standard default. We want to select KML here, and we want to make it today as our event, the KML file, and we'll save that. Then we'll go to the directory. And also we have to, the other thing I didn't show you before we leave here, is that when you bring in a template in this version of Orienteering Mapper, which is georeferenced, even though the original file on top, this event file, is not georeferenced, it can't be because it applies to all events. You'll notice if you go into map georeferencing, the whole thing has inherited the georeferencing from the template. And this is very useful for us because it means that this file this whole event where we've got the controls has inherited the georeferencing from the base map underneath. So if we then go and look at the actual today.kml file, and I'll just double click on that and we'll bring it up in Google Earth. And we can see what that KML file actually is. And there we are. Those are the points I put in, the vertices of the track. And notice how it's put, it's decided at the beginning and the end at F1 and S1, exactly as MapRun needs. And there was the first one I went to, then I went up here and so forth. So the control number order is the order in which I put vertices in that line, which I drew. We can also look at that KML file with your favorite text editor. And you'll see that it looks very much like a KML file with the Latin long and the place mark descriptors which are required for MapRun. So if you're not sure that it's right, you can compare this to a KML file which you've previously submitted to an event and just make sure the format looks okay. What you can then do is you can then go into the MapRun console, set up a check sites, which I did this afternoon with Bruce.kml. And I'll show you on my phone. I'll go into MapRun. The event is still, I'll stop sharing the screen. Now, is this going to work? Right. You can see that the event selected there is an event I created in check sites on MapRun this afternoon. The file I was using for that is this bruce.kml file here. We double click on that, we can see where that is in, actually we're going to have to turn off today and just leave the Bruce ones. It's just a much simpler event with only a few control points in it, starting in the middle of the oval there. If we then go to start, oh, sorry, I wasn't sharing the screen. I'll have to, and there is that event on MapRun with the start in the middle of the thing, and those couple of control points. So that confirms that the KML file has worked for us. I'll just get out of it so it doesn't waste the batteries. All right, so at this point, we've now generated our event. Any questions?
So you did the controls in numerical order.
Yes.
Does that apply even though you're doing a scatter or a score course?
Yes, because you still want controlled numbers for your score and your scatter. Well, we're generally sharing a map between a scatter and a score. So every course we set is a score course because they're Ask Power Walkers.
Yep.
So they will require numbers on the controls, and the numbers are going to have to correspond to what MapRun shows.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
And only uploaded the points, not the lines.
Correct, yeah, it's just taking the vertices of the line.
Yep.
It's just a convenient way they've used to do that.
Can you build that part of the map in reverse order with creating the KML file with, say, Google Earth, or you taking waypoints from your GPS, then importing the KML file into OpenMapper to then lay the circles?
I've never tried taking a KML file in as a template, but that's a possibility.
Because then that should just place.
It's accepted as a KML. What's it done though? We'll delete.
Just added the weird line and not.
Oh, this line here is a rubbish one I did before. Has it added a line in? No, I can't see anything. So though I've got a KML file there, it's not showing anything. So I don't think you can import them as such. However, this is the typical way we've been generating Streeto maps is we've been making a paper map and then also separately using Google Earth to set the points, looking at the power pole on Google Earth and so forth. That is prone to error because you've still got humans involved in comparing what's on the map, on the paper map or on the file of the paper map, and what we're actually generating for map run. And about once every few weeks, we end up with a control on the wrong junction where the map run doesn't compare to the paper map. So this avoids that error because you're using the same, because you've already placed the controls, you're not actually using the control itself, but it's easier, it's far less easy to make a mistake. It does mean that the map needs to be well georeferenced. If it's not well georeferenced, you'll have to still use a different information for your KML referencing. But if it is well georeferenced, I went through and georeferenced this map before I set the event at all. This works well. And as you saw on that screen, on the map run screen, it exactly corresponds to what's on the ground.
But you still have to find a feature to put the circle on.
Yes, that's true. And so you can use Google Earth in, and that's what I didn't actually use this mechanism to generate the KML file for this Highbury Hill event. I actually used, I saw that it existed and saw some intimations that it could be used, but I didn't know how to use it. And I just worked it out myself afterwards. So the one I generated was based on using Google Earth, exporting a KML file from Google Earth and then handcrafting that KML file into a KML file which MapRun is happy with, because I don't think they're quite the same. I think there's a utility which Jeff has written which will convert from KML to KML. But yeah, at least, and so that you can use Google Earth to then move these control points around on your map first. And then when you've got that right, then you generate the KML file from the map. It's probably the best way of doing it, because then you don't end up with that transcription error possibility.
If Google Earth is accurate, and if the map is accurately georeferenced, then if you could import, then you'd have accurate coordinates being imported to accurate controls. And you don't have to manually place a circle on the map.
Yeah, that's true. But the control itself is just a graphical artifact on the, it doesn't attach any importance to this grouping of a number and a circle on a dot.
No, I was thinking if you export the control list as you did here for your KML file, if one of those intersections on the open map orienteering mapper in front of you, one of those intersections is actually incorrectly mapped, and it'll be fairly obvious, yeah. Mark that position to export it. Whereas if you take that off of the satellite image off of Google Maps and Google Earth and it's accurate, then there's no doubting the correct location. And if you can see the pole from the satellite image and it's accurate, but
you can actually make errors in Google Earth. It's quite actually easy to get parallax. Google Earth's default view is actually sort of not vertical, and you've got to go and actually set it to be vertical. So you make sure you actually put it on the tree, but you actually have to look at it sideways to look at the tree to see it's the right tree, and then you go back up vertical to actually place the control. Because if you try and place it from Street View sideways, it can get all distorted, and so you can actually end up with it in slightly the wrong spot. Because Street View, as you move backwards and forwards, which is what you end up with in Google Earth, you can actually end up with it being a few meters off. So yeah, it's if the map is well georeferenced, this is probably using the map as the source of what you're actually going to generate the KML for is probably the best way. But yeah, I get your point that I've got a KML file in there as a template. We'll just turn off that template. No, isn't it? Well, hang on. I know those are controls I place, but nothing has appeared. Nothing appears due to that KML file. So I don't think it's terribly helpful.
The
Unfortunately.
dots are appearing, the points are appearing.
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah, the points are there.
Which points?
Control points?
No, not these points. These
No,
are
no,
Right,
down-
but there are dots coming on and
I
off.
can see them.
not on my screen.
If you scroll down just a tad, there was some at the bottom of the page, and you probably have to zoom in a bit. But there's definitely some dots in that section there that you should see.
Oh,
There you
yeah.
go.
Oh, you're right. Okay, you're right. So it is bringing in a dot. So you can go both ways. Wonderful. There you go, Darren. A good idea. So you can bring in as a KML file, as a template, and look at it. That's excellent.
What happens if you need a rotation for some reason?
Okay, that's part of it. That's more to do with the georeferencing, and I'll get to that in number 5. But I think I'll finish any more questions on this part of it before we go on to georeferencing.
Bruce, obviously one of the keys is to get this line, if you're going the way you are, to get this line right. So does the way, what if you had an absolutely straight line between, say, 1 to 2 to 3? How does it pick up that 2 is actually a control? Are you clicking the mouse?
You click. Yeah, you just make it it can be a straight line, but as long as you raise your finger off the mouse,
Okay.
and down again.
Yes, got it.
Line,
So-
it'll still be a line.
Right. So you're actually making a physical press at the control point
Correct,
and then
yeah.
going to the next one. Got it. Thank you.
So if we go, just put in a line here. Oops.
Export as KML. You don't have
Line
to
mode
put it
again.
down. That's what I did yesterday.
Why can't I get that
Eventually I got it right.
sometimes?
After I had all the right versions of the software.
I don't get this
I'd rather
sometimes.
use Condes.
You should have written it down.
This is what always happens in
Like
demonstrations.
Peter said, it's good for some things and not so good for other things.
No, not that one. It's an existing
Is your template hidden at the back and then it's not
yeah,
working?
it doesn't matter. That's just whether we got the map there or not. Turn off that template. Here we go. So now it's suddenly, oh, maybe it's that symbol, that thing. Yeah, okay, you got to click that one to do a line, draw paths. All right, learned something. If we draw a line like that, and then I've let go of the mouse and then carried on as a line. So
Thanks, Bruce.
that's two
Yeah,
vertex points.
yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Line. I mean, I didn't do a click down the bottom there. You've got to make sure you do a click at each point. And there's that line. Right. Any more questions on the event bit before I go into georeferencing?
If there were various line courses running, you would just name them all different, or?
You mean like well, for Streeto, we never use line courses as such. We all scatter and score. If you're making a line course, yes, you could go one which goes 1, 3, 7, 9 evens, and one which goes odds or something, and you could generate 2 separate KML files which are lines. But I don't know how that works with MapRun. I don't think MapRun. Well, I suppose MapRun can do line courses, but
Yep.
we don't
Absolutely.
really use them.
Separate file for MapRun for each course.
Yep.
Yes. We've been setting line courses in parks with MapRun, but we do it out of Condes because with Condes 10 you can just do a straight export as KML.
Right. Well,
So
this
you
is
just tell
very,
it which courses you're exporting and it'll create the KML files accordingly.
right. Okay, because you define the course.
Yeah.
If you just got a sea of controls, you want to define a course just using that line, and then generate a KML file for that line.
Yep.
Often in that case, the start and the finish will be different spots, so you're going to finish off somewhere else. That's also an equally valid way to do it. All right. So we'll bring it. Yes, the dots. That's it. That's excellent. How to georeference a base map. So we'll get out of this. All right. We'll take Highbury Hill Old, for instance. This is the one which came off the BK website before I georeferenced the file. Now, the first step I do for generating a georeferenced file is take all the stuff which is on the template. You don't want to be appearing on the base map as well. So we go through and we delete headings, club logos, north arrows, extraneous street names. So we'll leave the base street names there. I happen to leave the index there because it was not in the way at all, but also you'll get rid of this in here. Oops, no, don't delete a. This is a risk you can do when you're working on the base file. Delete that. So now we've got a clean, I know we've got something left up there, logo, clean base map, and we know it's not georeferenced because it's still got this local thing here. Now there's two ways you can generate a template to there used to be the Vic Maps source, but I was unsuccessful in getting it to work this time around. I don't know why they changed something in the export. So what I did this time is I used OpenStreetMaps. There we go. Yeah, there we go. OpenStreetMaps. So this is the Highbury Road area, Highbury Hill area in here. It's fairly easy. You just click on the export here. So this is, sorry, the OpenStreetMaps website. I've just gone to the area of the map which I want. Firstly, you select the area which you want, which corresponds to your Street O map. This is better than the Vic Maps method of doing things. You can actually decide what you actually want to include on the map. And minimize what you actually want to export. Like that. There we go, export. And we'll save it, and it'll save it in the standard downloads area. Then what I do next is I save this file. And well, I'll save it, save as test geo. I save it as OMAP because it's just a temporary save. And then we'll actually, what I'm going to, I've saved that map. I'm actually going to delete all this. Now, the reason I'm doing it this way is that then I keep all the original symbol set which came with the map, rather than trying to start off with a new map, which has got an undefined symbol set. We've actually retained all the symbols which were needed for that original map. We're not going to fool with that at this. I'm not trying to align symbol sets at that stage. It's a different task for someone else to perhaps do. We're just georeferencing a map. So now we've got a blank map with the symbol set. And then what we do is we bring in as one template the file which we just saved in, test geo. And we'll go okay. I didn't think that had georeferencing information, would it? I'll start off with GeoRef. Why am I starting off with GeoRef? I'm confused. That was the wrong one to start off with. Yeah. I know it was ungeorefed. All right, this is the one that one we saved. I'm pretty sure was. I think that was just up in the background that I won. This one is definitely. That one's georeferenced. Well, that's not what we want. We want an ungeoreferenced one. I'm sure this one's not georeferenced. Sorry about this.
Didn't notice where you went wrong.
No, it's not.
Georeferencing, yeah, local, definitely not georeferenced. So let's assume we stripped off this stuff in preparation. I've saved that file. Then I simply file. I'm going to say this is something else. I don't crap over that. Today's georef. That could be a no map. That's fine. So now in today's georef, I'm going to delete all of that. End up with our blank map. It's still not georeferenced. Then we will bring in just one template, the non-georeference map, which is that one. And the other reference is going to be the downloaded map.osm, which we just exported from OpenStreetMaps. And this will have, we'll change it to UTM coordinates. Yes, it's 55 south. Yes, that looks like standard Victorian map, lat long. Just do a sanity check on that. A good starting spot for this is around 8 degrees. We can tweak that as we go, but we're going to start off around there because we want to compensate for the magnetic declination. So it's roughly the lines are going up and down. Yes, we want to rotate. No, in this case, we don't want to rotate the map. And so here you can see that the original map was at that angle, but the roads are now roughly north-south. So now we've got two templates. The actual, if we turn the templates off, we've still got our blank map file. We haven't got anything on there. We can't move a georeferenced one. You notice the blue is great, the move is grayed out. The only one you can actually move is the non-georeference and that georeference one, and that makes sense. So we can move that one on top of our georeferenced information. We can edit the X and Y offset, tweaking it a little. Well, that's the same as move here. But we could also change the scaling bit if we feel overall. I think I actually did end up with a very small scaling factor. Actually ended up better off overall. But you can just experiment with X and Y and whether you want to rotate your map a bit or rotate the reference map. We can also, the other trick is to make the OSM map more, well, what we can actually do is move that one down in the stack, put it underneath, and then make that one more transparent. So now we can see both maps. And let's just turn off that. Why is that selected? This is actually different from the last time I exported from OSM. The last time it didn't have all this background shading, so it's a bit random. It was purple, but it wasn't quite like that. Anyway, and then as you can see, this Streeto map happens to be very good, and that is unusual. You will not normally get as close to georeference normally. Move that a bit to the right, get it right on top of the lines. There's very little tweaking I need to do this one at all to georeferencing it. But if you do need to tweak it, let's say this line here, we can just select. Oh no, we can't edit it yet. All we do at this point is we can change the X, Y. We can change the amplification a little bit, that positioning, the X and Y multiplication. Actually, I don't think I needed that. I'm thinking of a different map. we can change the position. Now that we're happy, and also the payment, as Hamish said, you might want to change the rotation a bit. We can just go map, rotate map, and you can change the, you don't want to adjust georeferencing reference point generally. You normally rotate around that point. And you can not rotate the non-georeference template. So by doing that, all we're rotating is the template. And that's one way to rotate the template, which would be the purple one there. Or the other way is to actually go into the georeferencing and change that number, which we originally set. So we can change that to 8.02 or, well, let's see, change it to a bigger number. And we actually see, do you want to rotate the map canton as well? No, because we want the black map to stay up and down. And we've now rotated the pink one a little bit. As you can see, it's now gone off our georeference a bit, rotate a bit to the left. So I would undo that because the 8 seem to be pretty good. Anyway, you can zoom in and check this georeferencing in detail. That's just standard georeferencing mechanisms. And then when you're happy with the positioning and the multiplication, you then basically import and remove. So what it'll do is it'll take the, actually want to import this one, import and remove. We take the original OCAD file, which had the map, and bring it into this map file, which we're working on. It's going to look the same, it's just selected. Except now it's deleted the template which we had behind, and this is now in the map file. And then we can make that back to 30% or something again, and then go down and tweak any tweaks which need to be made, because we now actually have a real map file which we're dealing with. Like that. So I've just tweaked the middle of that road as an example to get it right on the line. If you don't like that horrible purple background, another option is to use the Open Orienteering Map website, export a KMZ file from that of an orienteering map area, and you'll get the nice coloured Open Orienteering Map, which has been used for quite a few Streetos on MapRun as a MapRun background, and then bring that KMZ file in as a template instead of the OSM map. It seems to accept all sorts of things as templates, so it's quite useful. Now that I finish that tweak, we can turn off the OSM map, put that back to 100%. And that is now a completed georeferenced. And as we can see, georeferencing, georeferenced. That's a completed georeference map. Unfortunately, I've got all that rubbish in here, but you can take that off now if you want. It doesn't matter what point you take it off. I just tend to do it on the original file. Questions? Oh, when you're saving this file, obviously you can save it as an OMAP file. BK has gone for a standard of saving at OCAD 9. So OCAD 9 is a minimum, which will accept georeferencing information. So if you store it as OCAD 8, you'll lose that georeference. I think from now on, I'm going to store it as both an OMAP and an OCAD 9.
But not everybody in the club is.
OCAD 9 is fine. You can always bring it in as OCAD 9 and save it as an OMAP into Orienteering Map. It's fairly easy using this to convert between the two. So questions on the georeferencing, or any questions which have come up from the earlier part?
Bruce, just generally, you have to run around the street to check that the map run 6 is actually.
No, you don't. I just did that because I wanted to check.
I think
You don't have to.
I'm a bit obsessive compulsive. I think I'm going to walk around the street with this to check.
That's fine.
I do that. I mean, it also gives you an excuse to go on your own map, which otherwise you don't do.
Yeah. And I went out for a ride and did every control. And you might notice things on the map which you want to change, and because you've used the template, you can just go back and change the base map. You don't have to muck around with your event file map, which is ideal.
The other thing is the distances for each event. Is that really, how do you organize the numbering so the distances per group would be appropriate, do you think?
Well, the range of the distances for each course is set in the guidelines. How do you do that? I think you just get used to it. You look at other events. Obviously, if you've got an awful lot of controls near the start, it's hard to differentiate between the different courses. If you've got more very spread out and none near the start, then it tends to make the power walkers unhappy because they can't get enough controls. So you've always got to keep all these competing things in mind. I tend to try and put a circle of controls around the start, roughly equal distance and equal difficulty to get to the start, so people spread out in every direction.
As long as you start in the middle of the map.
Even then, I would still put a ring of control.
You try and give options.
Because they're going to pick a control to start with. They generally don't have time to plan their whole route at that point. It'll just be a sort of rough guess, and so it'll split people up as quickly as possible to have many route choices out of the start if you can. As Debbie says, in the corner, that gets harder.
But the question was about how to get the course lengths, correct?
Yeah, how to get the course lengths.
Well,
go ahead, Ian.
Well, one way, if you've put the controls on the map roughly that standard distance apart, do you have that in the course notes, how far apart?
Well, sort of about 400 to 500 meters.
400 to 500, then the course lengths will work themselves out, at least to start off with, by using the standard sort of number of controls, like 12 for C and 14 for B and 18 for A. And then if you have time to test one of those courses and track your own distance, then you'll see if it did come out right or not. I
mean, I have to admit, I just used a piece of paper, Peter, to measure the rough distances using a piece of paper and mark off the vertices on the piece of paper as I go, measure a typical course for C, use a piece of paper, get back to the start, measure that total distance, multiply it by the scale and go, okay, that's the distance that course is. No, it's a bit long. Will I then have an option of reducing the number of controls, or have an option of moving controls around a bit? It's a bit of playing around. But yes, I generally have at least one. Like, you probably want to start off measuring the A course, and then if all the controls are similar density, the other courses tend to sort of pan out fairly well. The other one you've got to concentrate on is the shortest course, the D course. You've got to make sure that in that distance they get enough controls.
If you've got A and D right, B and C kind of just work themselves out.
Yeah, I always start with the shortest one, actually.
Okay.
Make sure I've got enough controls around the start.
Around the start area,
yeah.
Well, that's why I put a loop around the start to start with. And I just took that to extremes for Highbury Hill.
I haven't looked at Highbury Hill yet.
No, doing
Okay, all right.
But if you want to get really tedious about it, I measure the distance between every pair of controls using GMAP pedometer, and I put them in a spreadsheet, and then I can type in what I think would be good courses, and it tells me the length.
And Jeff Hudson goes to even more extreme
Yeah.
lengths.
Yeah, he has a something that runs the
Walking
traveling
salesman.
salesman algorithm,
Yeah.
processes it for 12 hours and works out the shortest course.
Well, John Meeking devised a spreadsheet for when he set the champs a few years ago, where you put all the distances in between each control, and it does similar to what Mark does. You can put in any combination of controls and it'll tell you what the distance is. And Pam used that extensively when she was planning Cabell's Corner last year.
I mean, if you've got in this sort of area, Peter, I didn't go north of Highbury Road and on my event. And if you've got a spread of those 20 controls in that area, it's a bit hard to go too far wrong.
Yeah.
As long as you've got a few around the start. And then some people just think in terms of rings, and they just, the ones the furthest out ring only. The other thing was the very last thing you do when you set all your course lengths and got all your controls in the right places for all your various course lengths, then you number the controls as the last thing, because you have to number the controls to suit the power walkers. So the numbering, and everyone else doesn't care about the numbers. So you'll tend to put, if you put very high point controls at 4 corners of the map, you just get the power walkers upset at you. So if you want to put controls in the 4 corners of maps, make them 2 pointers or 3 pointers, and then I tend to make most of the 5 pointers gettable, and then actually concentrate more on making power walkers having to miss 4 pointers or 3 pointers. And that's,
if you don't think the power walkers are important, I think they've made up nearly half of the number of people who did week 1 maps last week.
Yeah, so it's important to get that number.
It's a fairly big audience.
Yeah.
In the case of Highbury Hill, I actually used a particular formula which will become obvious if you stare at the map.
I set my map, I actually label the controls A through T or A through Y.
I actually did do that, Mark. I started off with A, B, C, D, and then I thought, oh, I can number them in this particular way. So I did.
Yeah, okay. And so, and that way, I don't have to decide till right at the end. Then I decide which one's 20, which one's 1, and so on. It makes it a lot easier when you're still moving them around, not having them numbered.
I tend to put all the controls in first, but not number them. And then once I've got it more or less right, then I'll decide the numbering at the end.
Yeah. I need letters on them for my spreadsheet. So actually, it's actually easier because you don't have to deal with 2 digits then. I say, all right, what's the course C, 10 controls, A, B, F, G, H, Q, whatever. You can just type that in and it tells me the length. Now, maybe I'll try.
So there you go. You've got a whole range of options there, Peter.
There's lots of, just depends how much time you want to spend on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't get too carried away, but just make sure it's not hopelessly short for A and not hopelessly long for D.
But B was very long tonight. That's why I was late.
Not on my map.
No, on Coolamara.
Right.
Or Kumara.
I've already got an apology from Pete.
It's 8 point. What did I do? 8.6K. So
it was long.
Yeah, 8.5K. So it.
That's not too long for me.
Oh no, but it's
it's
not what I was expecting. And when I glanced at the map, I didn't expect it. So it took me substantial.
So it tricks you into it.
No, it's sort of good like that. It's a well set course, but
it's not a power walking course. I can tell you that now.
No, it's not a power walking course.
2 5-pointers are north of the map. We've got one right down the south of the map, one right on the east and west of the map.
They
set the course tonight.
Peter Yates.
Did he? Yeah,
I think that's what it said. Yeah. No, it's bad for. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying for power walkers. It's tough. I was so tempted to use the shortcut through the outer bounds, but I didn't.
Through the golf park.
Start to 12.
Oh
yeah. That would have knocked them because that other bridge is closed at the northwest. That adds quite a few hundred meters to the course too. Because you can't go out the northwest corner of the park straight to 1.
The bridge is gone.
Yeah.
That happened after he set the course.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not blaming him, but it's just, I was, By the time
Got
I got
washed-
to
it got
number
washed with the
one
readers.
via 4, I was surprised how much distance
Yeah.
I'd done. And I thought, oh, I've only done 2 controls. This is going to be
Hey,
long.
Bruce, why are these controls all at the end of courts?
They're not necessarily. It's just where the box ended up.
No, that's all right. So this is your boxes. You've used the box technique, of course,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
there's those of us that study the maths of this know when you've got a box, for instance, the top left corner,
I thought I'd invented this time. I
Yeah,
thought it was the whole
it's
theory.
it's mathematically calculated. Obviously, 3, 9, 16, and 14. Each box has got a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. But the entrance to the box, so 16 is the entrance to the top left box.
Yep.
But you want an entrance and an exit to a box. And when the entrance and exit are the same control, that means you have to go back past the same control. That means it's not going to work. It's a variation of Ted's Christmas X map.
It's actually a variation of Phil Coulton's.
Well, someone else did the X map before Ted.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was
So-
me.
It's going to be unpleasant.
Oh, it's not that unpleasant.
If you come in here and do these, you know, bloody long way to go to get
Because
to
the
next box.
boxes are far apart. And
Yeah.
if you can entrance the boxes by the near control, which means you have to exit them by a distant control. And that makes it's a kilometre between those boxes.
Yeah.
Good. I like to do mathematical ones too.
Well, the numbering for power walkers is also distributed amongst the boxes evenly.
Yes,
Which means they need to go to every box.
yes.
They don't have to.
Well, yeah, but to get a good
Get all
score, they
5
do.
pointers, yeah.
Is there a measurement tool in this?
In OCAD, I think there is.
It's not going to go around the streets though, is it? Or can you?
You have to just do it.
No, you'd have to draw a box, I think. So no object. So you've got to measure. So-
Same way if you're using Google Earth to map it, lots of little clicks to get around the bends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, there's no, because this is a template underneath, there's just controls on this map as far as this is concerned. If we select a line, like that line there, and then go tools, where was it?
I didn't read that.
Measure lengths. There you go. The length of that border. So it measures the length of a continuous line quite happily. So you just put in a line for your course. Very similar to the line which we did for the actual course setting KML file, but you actually have to follow the streets, put in a line and measure the length of that line, and it'll work. So if we take a line, start at the start, go to here. Oops, you've got to select this business again.
I think you have to use the spline again.
Yeah, there we go. Go there, 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 there.
I don't like this already. We're not doing this one.
And so on.
No, I've got this slated for, well, maybe Wednesday, but might have to shift that if the weather's as bad as they're predicting.
Okay, so to get from the start to control 16, is 250 meters or so.
Um,
Oh, 2.2K, sorry.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, 2.2K if you multiply it by 10,000.
150 metres barely get you out of the park.
Yeah, so that's,
Hmm.
there you go, Peter. Yes, there is a line measurement method.
But GMAP pedometer and things like that are easy to
There's
use
lots of
because
those sorts of tools. Yeah.
you just click on one of the, because if you're going along streets and stuff, you just click on one point and then click on the next. It tells you exactly how far it is following the streets. So that makes it easy. And even if you don't want to go through all the tedious thing I do, one thing you can do just as a quick check on your map is to say, all right, I've got a C course, 10 controls. Where would I go? Just try it in GMAP pedometer. Just go click, 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 click around the 10 controls and back. It'll give you a total distance and you go, oh yeah, 5K or whatever, it's about right, or it's
Mm.
too long or too short.
Yeah.
Any
Okay.
more questions before we stop the
Hmm.
recording?
Oh, that's pretty good. Thanks, Bruce.
Sounds good. Have to give it a try.
Thanks for that, Bruce.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, thanks.
Very
So-
good, Bruce.